Mr. Edgal, Gabriel Edgal. Gabriel Edgal is an astute business management and financial expert with multi-decade experience in comprehensive understanding of doing business globally and across Africa. He has deep understanding of banking, strategy, and governance. An experienced corporate turnaround expert, Gabriel has, throughout his career, engineered significant business transformation in a number of notable financial institutions across Africa, across the African continent, and in various executive leadership capacities. He is currently the principal of Oakwood Green Africa Limited, a Pan-African conglomerate fueled by a passion to enable greatness across Africa, with key investments in corporate finance and trade advisory, banking, technology, knowledge capital, and business acceleration. Gabriel's extensive experience throughout his professional life has exposed him to many challenges facing the African continent, and he has been committed to impacting current and the next generation by doing his part to realize the change Africa needs today. He is an avid public speaker. Yes, I know this because I had the pleasure of meeting him yesterday. A philanthropist, a firm believer in leveraging strengths and partnerships to help one another to bloom. He holds a bachelor's degree in engineering, a degree in civil engineering, and a master's in business administration, and he is an alumni of the INSEAD Business School. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to have the singular honor to welcome Mr. Gabriel Edgal.
Thank you for those flowery words. When you were speaking, I didn't know you were talking about me. Good morning, everyone. Obviously, we must always recognize protocols. The Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, ably represented by the Honorable Minister for Energy, Mr. Abdul Job, who just told me he's also an engineer. The Honorable Minister of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration, and Employment, Honorable Babuka Ismaila Jof. Thank you so much for being here, sir, and thank you for the meeting yesterday. It was very illuminating. And your comments were very apt too. The Honorable Governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia, Honorable Boa Seidi, who was so eloquent. Thank you so much, sir. The Executive Vice President, my sister, of Intra-African Trade Bank, Business Development and Corporate Banking, Afreximbank, Mrs. Kanayo Awani. The Chief Executive Officer of GAIPA, Mr. Hussein Senghor. I got that right. The Chief Operating Officer, Anglophone West Africa, Afreximbank, Mr. Eric Intong. His Excellency, Mr. Wamkele Mene, ably represented here today by the Special Senior Advisor, AFTCA, Mr. Peter Sewonu. Heads of various government parastatals here, captains of industry, my colleagues from Oakwood Green Africa, executives from Afreximbank, members of the press, friends, fellow brothers and sisters. It feels very great to be here again, joining hands with you on the beautiful, smiling coast of Africa. It's very interesting because truly, you are one of the most friendly nations I have witnessed in Africa. And I think we deserve to clap for ourselves for that. It was Bob Marley who sang and said, Africans unite. Africans unite. Absolutely. The truth about it is that those barriers that divide us are very artificial. Extremely artificial. But we have tried so many times to see how we can unite so that we have one collective. You know, as individual countries, we are unable to harness the potential that exists within us. But as one collective, we are powerful. But who is doing this? Who is ensuring that we can become one collective, as powerful and even more powerful than the Europe collective or the Asia collective? Absolutely. Because we have everything here. Who is doing that? This is why we're here. This is what we must do. So, seeds have been sown, and this is what we are trying to do. Sow these seeds to understand the potential that is out there. Last year we gathered here. We have sown some seeds. Some have sprouted on the way to blooming, evidenced by some of the transactions that the Executive Vice President spoke about that are originating in the Gambia today, some in trade, some in hospitality, some in health. But this is just the beginning. We've scratched the surface. Think about it for a second. Afreximbank is a $35 billion bank. We have our own bank to solve our own problems. But I guess one of the problems is knowledge of the existence of Afrexim. The GDP of the Gambia is about 2-point-something billion. Put it in perspective. So it means that it is very possible for economic and infrastructural development to be powered by our bank, Afreximbank. Inspired by the work and the vision of great leaders past, we have made history bringing the first Afreximbank Trade Roadshow to the Gambia. As our small but impactful contribution to the Intra-Africa trade agenda, we are unwavering in our firm belief that the swiftest and surest way to ensure integration of our great continent with its antecedent benefits and the actualization of the AFCA is through intra-Africa trade. Today, we take another giant leap forward towards sustaining this intra-Africa trade agenda, and we are also passionate about, powered by Afreximbank, Oakwood Green Africa, Ministry of Trade, through GAIPA. GAIPA, I cannot thank you well enough, and I will be thanking you as we go ahead. Brothers and sisters, it has been an eventful, not so interesting couple of years for our continent, particularly in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war. The latter, which has been going on for over a year, has had dire effects on many African economies, including Gambia's. Trade and investment flows have been disrupted with rippling effects, shaking the core of almost every economy in the world. The sanctions from the war have slowed down trade between Russia and some parts of Africa, bringing with it untold impact on African economies that rely heavily on this trade corridor. It has indeed been challenging. And if there is a moment where intra-Africa trade is crucial, this is the time. With the war taking its tolls on major economies of the world, the question of what Africa will do becomes even more relevant. The Executive Vice President spoke about the challenge we had to get vaccines. We couldn't produce ourselves. We couldn't even produce masks for ourselves. Are we that impotent? The answer is no. If Afreximbank did not rise up at that time to create a $2 billion facility to ensure that vaccines came here, only God knows what the story would have been. When these things happen, all of the other global economies, they close their doors. They look inwards. What are we doing? We need to look inwards as well. And we will make it happen. Other regional blocs, despite the challenges of the war, are strengthening borderless trade and facilitating trade amongst their neighboring countries. Within the Eurozone, has about $13.2 trillion GDP as of 2021. Trade is a key driver of economic growth, with the collective strengths spurring agriculture, manufacturing, exports, and more similarly, blocs like Asia, GDP of $3.5 trillion, they boast of intra-regional trading. In Africa, the story is no different, and it should be no different. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, AFCA initiative, has also come at a crucial time to facilitate intra-Africa trade, give our various African economies access to other African markets, and promote deeper economic integration and increased investments in people and resources. The success of this intra-Africa trade agenda will, however, depend on the development of infrastructure, harmonization of trade rules and regulations, and the resolution of political and economic challenges facing many African countries. Most importantly, it will involve the participation of every African country, big, small, medium, it doesn't matter, including the Gambia. Now, let's look at Gambia as a key contributor to the intra-Africa trade agenda. Brothers and sisters, as a well-positioned African country, the Gambia will play a significant role in the intra-Africa trade agenda. Although not so large, Gambia's economic potential is enormous with many growth opportunities. The AFDB projects Gambia's growth rates, and the governor has just said it. Last year it was 5.2%. This year is projected to be 5.6, 5.8%. This is one of the highest growth rates you will find in any African country, even in global economies, fueled by agriculture, transport, energy, tourism, finance, and the digital economy. In agriculture, the Gambia produces crucial commodities such as groundnuts, rice, vegetables. By increasing agricultural productivity and expanding exports, the Gambia can contribute to regional food security and commodity trade. Imagine when Russia closed down, Ukraine could not export wheat, we could not eat bread. I mean, it's a sad story. Indeed, Gambia has the potential to become the largest supplier of groundnuts to the region, with the development of processing capacity to produce groundnut oil and other related cottage industries. Imagine the jobs that will create. Afreximbank can help the Gambia navigate this opportunity. The Export Development Division of the Afreximbank was set up specifically for this purpose. In tourism, the story gets even more interesting. The smiling coast of Africa, known for its beautiful beaches, friendly people, wildlife reserves, cultural heritage, making tourism an important source of foreign exchange earnings for the country. By developing its tourism industry and promoting regional tourism, the Gambia can contribute to the growth of the West African tourism sector and invariably promote trade and trade-enabling infrastructure, especially as relates to our waterways and our ports. The movement of people across the border for tourism will invariably bring about the movement of goods and services and ultimately enhance regional integration. What about this regional trade we speak about? The Gambia has access to regional markets through its memberships in ECOWAS, WEMWA, and now the AFCA. But there must now be a deliberate strategy to take advantage of the opportunities that these unions create to enhance regional trade by expanding trade with other West African countries and bringing down the trade barriers that impede its growth. Indeed, in view of the strategic positioning of the Gambia along the Manu River, the country is well placed to act as a trade hub for transshipment of goods, not only to neighboring Senegal, but from Africa here to the Americas and indeed Europe. And this is why AFCA was created. This is why the Afreximbank Intra-Africa trade exists. We must all strive to make this work. This does not even cover half of the economic potential of the Gambia and the opportunities that Intra-Africa trade portends for this country. The question, therefore, is not why we need to do this, but where do we start from and how do we get this done? And this is why we are here. This is why Oakwood Green Africa, Afreximbank, and GAIPA are collaborating to see this come to fruition with your collaboration as well. But we must start by asking ourselves the right questions and looking for African solutions to African problems. Trust me, no one is going to do this for us except ourselves. If there's ever a people that has defied all odds, despite fierce opposition in various forms, including neo-colonialism, it is us, you and I. Despite the years of being suppressed, we are still standing. And we would progress beyond imagination if only we could come together to harness our potential. By starting to ask pertinent questions, we are beginning to rethink our collective futures and redefine what being an African means. Questions like, how is it that trade with my neighbor just across the border has to be so painstakingly difficult? Why can I not benefit from the large markets for my products that Africa provides? Why is my focus only on international trade, only on imports, that leaves us as consuming nations instead of producing nations? Why should our mothers and sisters in Basse, in Serekunda, struggle to trade with their customers in Accra, Lomé, and Addis Ababa? Why is transportation across Africa such a nightmare? Why are cross-border payments difficult and expensive? These are the kind of questions that have forced Africa-focused organizations like Afreximbank to think out of the box and introduce products and programs designed to change the course of the Africa story for the better. These are the challenges Oakwood Green Africa aims to solve through this partnership with Afreximbank, the Ministry of Trade and GAIPA in the Gambia, and everyone in this room doing their own bits in any way they can to turn the wheels of the collective fortunes of our economies for the better. But the topic of this conference today is navigating the last mile. What is the last mile? The last mile in intra-Africa trade is a critical area that requires continued attention, investments, and collective participation to unlock the full potential of the African market and drive sustainable economic growth and development. So it's not enough that we speak and we talk and it's speeches and speeches and speeches. Who actually makes these transactions happen? That's the last mile. So Afreximbank has great products, has great finance. How do you get access to that? That's the last mile. This is why we're here. But it involves all of us. Afreximbank cannot do it alone. When it comes to intra-Africa trade, the last mile includes the final stage of delivering goods and services from the point of production to the end consumer. Logistics is key. Who is providing it? Who is exploring our waterways? These are opportunities. The last mile includes getting Africans to know what is available out there in Africa. Who has what we need? Who needs what we produce? And what can we produce that is needed by our neighbors? Information and data are key. Who is providing it? The AFCA may assist to navigate the complex regulatory frameworks and utilize its convening power to smoothen the transaction bottlenecks impeding trade across countries. But who is ensuring that the trades actually happen and companies take advantage? Who? Afreximbank are able to provide capital for the development of trade-related infrastructure and indeed have the trade financing capacity for all of Gambia's needs. But then, why is the Gambia not taking advantage of this? Who is ensuring that SMEs, which are the engines of growth in any economy, and who are probably a lot in this room, are bankable and can have the much needed access to finance, especially as it relates to export development? And what about payment systems? Why do we still have payment restrictions across our countries? What is PAPS and what will it do for us? You see these payment restrictions we speak about. Everyone has their own currency. To pay, you have to convert it to a currency that the other neighbor will accept. Convert to dollar, convert to euro, convert to whatever, before you can get it. Meanwhile, the neighbor is just across there. You know, before the euro became the euro, countries were able to exchange their own currencies. French franc, GBP, this one, across. Why can't we do that? Because they say we have to keep reserves. That if you know, it's very interesting. If you look, and with due respect, my governor, sir, I know you chair some of the committees of governors. Why do we have restrictions of movement of current and capital accounts between African countries? They say money laundering. If you allow free movement of money, people will launder money. Is it not better that money is laundered from Ghana to Gambia than for it to be laundered from Ghana to Switzerland? Because it will be laundered. So why do we have the supervision of central banks? They have joint supervision. The only thing we must do is make sure it doesn't leave the continent. Allow it move across one another. If there's money in Nigeria, because somebody was in a position and he pocketed some of it, let him bring it here to build bridge. Because it's very sad. If you are able to get a tenth of the kind of money that our Africans have taken outside of our shores, which they take there, give us 0.0001%, and then now lend it to us, and they will even be telling us you are not qualified to get it. Meanwhile, it's our money. So we must be able to begin to change these things. You say, oh, we need to have enough dollar reserves. Does my brother in Sierra Leone need me to put reserves to trade with me? They don't need it. The same way as it happens in Europe, why can't it happen in Africa? But then again, I say we talk, but we are not here to talk. We are here to do. Now, the last mile can be particularly challenging, but this is why organizations like Oakwood Green Africa were born. We live for this. Where others may see just challenges, we see opportunities. What do you see? I've just spoken about a couple of challenges now. Do you see them as challenges or opportunities? Who is navigating our waterways? Is it a challenge or is it an opportunity? Gambia can be the hub for the entire Africa. Is it a challenge or is it an opportunity? I see opportunity. These challenges, though seemingly daunting, can be addressed and are indeed being addressed through Afreximbank and more recently, AFCA. In partnership with private organizations who share this vision, it is time for Gambia to join this moving wagon. It is time. The collective role is that we must reduce, of course, non-tariff barriers and harmonize trade policies to promote seamless trade across the borders. And I'm glad I met the Minister for Policy and all of that. We will facilitate a meeting with the AFCA. This is why the AFCA exists. We must strengthen and simplify custom procedures to reduce the time and cost of transactions. This is why the AFCA exists. We must promote regional value chains and support the development of regional industries, okay, to enhance competitiveness and create jobs. So we produce granules here. We can establish factories for that in Senegal. Or we have raw materials in Guinea. We can establish factories here for distribution. These are things that have to happen. There's too much, because there's no raw material or resource you want to think about that is not under our soil. If it's not here, go down the road, it is there. So are we researching to see how we can do this? We need to prioritize investments in trade and trade-enabling infrastructure, such as building and improving roads, railways, ports, to facilitate the movement of goods within the continent. This is why Afreximbank is here. We must improve the quality and standards of African products to meet international standards and increase their marketability. This is why Afreximbank set up a standard organization somewhere in Nigeria. We need to encourage innovation and the adoption of technology to enhance productivity and competitiveness in African economies. These are some of the things that Oakwood Green is doing, leveraging technology to enhance productivity. We must increase access to finance for small and medium-sized enterprises to enable them participate in intra-Africa trade and take advantage of emerging opportunities. Again, Oakwood Green Africa has created a company called Afreximbank, which we will talk about. But this is why Afreximbank's mission and commitment to addressing these challenges comes at such a crucial time. Please, help me honor Afreximbank, ably represented here by the Executive Vice President. I think we need to. You know, sometimes I think, what if we did not have an organization like Afreximbank? I know Gambia has not yet understood the power of what they can do for the country. But many countries in Africa have already started to benefit. I don't know how many billions they've disbursed all across Africa. If we didn't have, there would not be any hope. There would not be an Oakwood Green Africa. But we are leveraging their capacity. We are leveraging we share in their dream. They know that it is Africans that can solve Africans' problem. They have capacity and they can do it. So we've partnered with them. Now, delivering this last mile sometimes can be challenging because Afreximbank is a big bank, there are processes and things. How do you speak their language in a way that will be understood? You have a project, how do you transcribe it in a way that Afreximbank will understand? This is what Oakwood Green Africa does. We understand what you need because we are in business like you. We understand what Afreximbank requires because we are partnered with them and we bring it all together to ensure that you can get the much needed financing that you require. Look at the products that Afreximbank has developed. We can't even begin to name them, but we are not using them in the Gambia. Financial institutions and banks here present, you have a major role to play. So the MANSA, the PAPS, we keep talking about PAPS. We keep talking about PAPS. What is PAPS? Pan-Africa Payment and Settlement System. I know that they are going to speak about it, but this is coming from an area of passion. Okay? And I must commend you, Governor, sir. You are one of the first central banks to adopt PAPS. Thank you so much for that, sir. The Pan-African Payment System means that we can pay local currency. You know this dollar we are looking for, dollar. We can pay Gambian dalasi for anything that we want here. You just heard that Egypt, every time you go to Cairo, it has changed. They are always building. They are the master builders. You know the Egyptian pyramids? Till today, they are still master builders. They have cement in abundance. They have everything in abundance. Okay? Imagine that to build a road here, all we have to do is to pay the Egyptian contractor in Gambian dalasi. Think about that. What can we not build? Tough. It's just an example. So it means we can build bridges, we can build roads, ports, everything. They can partner with our local builders here. And we don't have to worry about how we are going to get dollar, which is one of the things that has strangulated us. I want to import roses where they are produced in Kenya for my wife and girlfriends. I'm sorry. For my wife. I'm sure my wife is listening now, but that was a joke, madam. From Kenya. Now, Kenya will first export those roses to Switzerland or to London. Then I here will now import it from there. I'm looking for dollar. When I can easily pay Gambian dalasi and they ship the roses to me here. I mean, it just makes no sense. We will change it. The tasks are daunting, yes, but the benefits to us and our children yet unborn are enormous. This is what we must do now. For the banks here present, do not leave here without understanding what Afreximbank has to offer. Understand what your role is to be a MANSA, to understand MANSA. What is MANSA? MANSA just ensures that people you put on a platform have gone through basic due diligence so that you can trust them and you can deal with them from across Africa. Afreximbank has provided that. Okay? Understand what Afreximbank products are. Trade finance. Only a few banks here have gotten the opportunity for the trade finance lines that they have. Only 4 out of the 12. You should all have this. Trade finance to be able to finance trade of customers, not just Africa, but international trade. You should understand that. Your central bank has said PAPS is open. Where are the transactions? These are things that you must understand and how to navigate. Oakwood Green Africa is here. Afreximbank is here to assist you to navigate that. To the CEOs and business leaders here, the truth about it is that always ask yourselves those questions. The truth about it is sometimes, yes, we import from, because they've taken our materials, they've taken it offshore, they are producing there and we're importing from them. But there are things in the continent. Always ask yourself, this cement I am importing from wherever, can I get it from Nigeria, Dangote? Can I get it from Cairo? Can I get it from whatever who produce? Can I begin to trade with ourselves? When we do that, we create more jobs for Africans. That's how people would also look and say, why am I importing granules from whatever? Why can't I get it from the Gambia? Why am I importing these fruits? Why can't I get it from here? We import fruits, toothpick. When anytime you throw anything out here, it will grow. Agriculture. Anyway, to the press and friends of the media, you must tell the story right. I mean, there was a radio program where, I heard that the compere was talking, the host was speaking about, why do we have to do intra-Africa trade? We don't trade with other African countries, we import. This, for me, is, may my people not perish for lack of knowledge. Okay? We really do need to understand that it is when we trade with one another that we can create jobs and create things. Otherwise, we will just be taking our resources and going out. That is what would happen. It has been happening for years. We have to change that. So, you have to tell the story right. We must support this agenda. Now, how are we helping? We took 5 areas. A bunch of us who came together, and they're all within the room here. Oakwood Green Africa, can we see your faces quickly? Stand up and to be recognized quickly. Very good. Very good. What did we do? So, we connected the dots in our lives. Some of us have had the opportunities to work in various African countries. Me especially. I had the opportunity to work directly in about 18 to 20 African countries. I went into these countries, met with the people, went to the markets, sat at the ports, saw goods moving, everything. I saw these gaps. I also had the opportunity to travel around the world. So I said to myself, all of those things that we have, was it for me or is for a reason? And I feel it's for a reason. For a reason that we can actually, based on what we know, who we know, okay, and the competence, be part of the solution rather than just be one of the complainants. And so we decided to be a conduit for capital into Africa for development. So we will partner with global organizations because we understand their language. We were bankers for many years, investment bankers, structuring, trade, structuring transactions. We understand the language of the multilaterals. We will be a conduit for capital into the Gambia to build roads, to build schools, to build hospitals, to build trade businesses and export capacity. That's one of the things we want to do. So we set up a company called Oakwood Green Advisory to be able to do that. And that's one of the things we're doing. Secondly, we said that technology is making changes all around the world. How do we leverage technology? So whatever technology is out there, we will go look for it and bring it to the Gambia. So for instance, today, gari, okay, processing gari, the manual process to take the cassava, cut it, heat it, something, dry it, it takes time and labor. Meanwhile, there are machines out there that you just put the cassava, brrr, gari comes out. But one, people may not be aware that it exists. Two, they may not be able to finance it. This is what we live to do. We will bring that thing and we will give it to the local people who produce gari. We also said that in knowledge. So, while we do not frown, Western education is great. But what about relevant education? So if granules is our strength, if whatever is us, Do we teach anything about how to farm, agric? How do we teach that in our schools? Relevant education that can assist us to be self-sufficient. My time is up, eh?
It has been up.
Okay. I will round up now. But you see, there's so much to say. And you see the crowd, they are not bored, so. Okay. Then lastly, see, I've jumped many things. We have set up an accelerator company, which we call Afreximbank. Afreximbank has been introduced into the Gambia. It takes small and medium enterprises and takes them through a journey of capacity building so that they become bankable and they can now have access to finance. We are doing that, and the sponsor, first of all, for this particular one is Bloomberg Africa Gambia Limited. So I think they already have about 2,000 SME women. Yes, thank you. You can clap. I think some of the women who are going to benefit are probably here. So we started with the women traders. We put them in cohorts, clusters. We're going to give them finance after training them to understand how to manage their finance. In conclusion, brothers and sisters, let us not forget the power of the collective. Ubuntu, I am because you are. We should forget these boundaries that make us aliens. We have the potential, talents, and the resources to build a prosperous Africa where our children and grandchildren can live, thrive, and excel. Talk is cheap. Action is what is needed. And the time for action is now, and we must not relent. We can either be a part of the solution and work together to help each other navigate this last mile for intra-Africa trade, or we can sit down. The option is not to sit down. It is action. My name is Gabriel Edgal. I choose to be a part of the solution. What about you? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel Edgal.